Hello, and
You're the man in black.
what was that?
So we're both dressed in black today. So I was singing
What,
the Will Smith Men in Black theme song.
right, and how did that go once more?
We are the men in black.
Wow, it's like I'm zooming with Will himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you happen to remember? I was talking about this with someone the other day. Do you happen to remember Will Smith back when he was the Fresh Prince and he like not on the TV show, but he actually was his rap
Yeah,
songs.
yeah, I remember. I do.
Remember Parrots Just Don't Understand?
Well, I wasn't a fan, but I do recall. I do remember. Yes.
Right, right.
How he began. How old was he when he was doing Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? Was he like in his early? No, he was in his late teens, maybe, or.
Yeah, late teens, early 20s. I would guess. Yeah, I'm not really sure exactly.
I remember it starting and like thinking, oh, this looks kind of well, fresh. But it just wasn't very particularly funny. Like it wasn't terrible. It just wasn't it was
Yeah,
kind of no, it was like one of those things that presented itself like here's something, but like the jokes were pretty much
yeah, it was a 90s sitcom. I mean, all the jokes were there was all pre-written most of the time. Most sitcoms from the 80s and 90s is like all the jokes are really flat and telegraphed. I don't know how that became a nice art form, but or a revered art form. But comedy in sitcoms is a lot more uh I don't know, I say advanced or sort of uh enlightened now, I think. I think there's a lot
the,
more. Yeah.
the hilarious play on words at my school, I think, was it was that he was the Fresh Prince who was a bell end. Ah, there it is.
Well, what's a bell end?
That's the end of your cock. The bit that
We,
bulges
we
out.
don't use that term, so I don't know. It's
You
called a
don't
bell
even
end.
bell end. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's why you're not in tears of
And
laughter at
yeah.
yeah. It was that was
But he was a Fresh Prince that was a bell end, so I mean means he's not anymore.
well. I mean, it's up to you to judge, right, by his behavior on the show.
Or wouldn't it be the Fresh Prince with a bell end?
Um, Welcome to the Magic Morning Magic Morning Wood, where we discuss all this and more.
All the issues really
Yes.
that you want to know about.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, welcome everybody. Yeah, so welcome back to our latest episode.
Yes.
And of course, we have to go through the most important part of the show. How's it going, Clive?
Good. You, Ron. How are you?
Not bad.
Excellent.
Great. All right, moving on then. So moving on to
Yes.
the other part of the show, the less important part, of
Well,
course.
we should also, from now on, I think this is almost definitely, I forgot to mention this to you, Ron. I think this is almost definitely going to continue as a YouTube video series as opposed to
I
an
see.
audio podcast,
Huh.
because Podbean are useless. And I contacted them several times, sent them videos of what the problem was, which and then after all that, it was just, you know, we don't know.
Is
That was it.
can we not get a new provider?
I mean, we could do that, but then again, I mean, YouTube. I mean, it's not as if our numbers soar or anything.
But I mean, yeah, I don't know. It was
But now,
originally an audio podcast, so
yes.
yes.
Well, I think what happened was once people saw us, that cat was out the bag, and I don't think it's not good enough to just listen to us anymore. I think
Right.
we'll demand this primarily.
And what is this cat that escaped
A
from the
cat
bag?
is a four-legged animal that
Uh,
isn't a dog.
okay, I get, but what is in this analogy? What's a cat?
Our good looks.
Oh, I see. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, not really, but anyway.
Well, no, I mean that's this side of the screen.
Right,
More,
okay.
yeah. Not
Is
to
that the side that I'm on?
not to throw shade. No, obviously not. Anyway, So
Anyway,
after being kicked for one episode, and Robin Frenchroll came on to
oh, really? Okay. Yeah. What movies did you do?
we did the Japanese Chambara film The Betrayal.
Actually, I don't really care.
No,
Okay.
I suspected. And what was the other one? Oh, Drunken Tai Chi.
Okay. So was that Ikifus?
No. It was wood all the way.
All the way wood. Okay, I see. Well, anyway, I'm back
Yes.
for now.
Great.
For the moment. Yeah, so we're jumping back into our algorithm.
Yep.
And all the way back when we did the last movie we did was Caravaggio,
which you loved, I remember.
Yeah, it was amazing.
You've probably gone out and got the Blu-ray and everything by now, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Rewatched it at least once a day. So moving on. So my reaction to Caravaggio.
No, it's my reaction.
Your reaction?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay, yeah. Your reaction to Caravaggio was?
You forgot how this works already.
It was your movie.
Yeah, okay. And then that's how it works now.
All right, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, your reaction was?
The Devils. 1971. Directed by Ken Russell. Was this a film you'd seen before at all, Ron?
No, okay. It wasn't.
So based on real life events in 17th century France.
Ostensibly.
Yeah, I mean, quite a lot actually. There's probably more in the film based on real life facts than you might imagine. And there are two sources: John Whiting's play The Devils and Aldous Huxley's book The Devils of Loudon, which I've been reading. Actually, I haven't quite finished it yet. Quite a dense read, but
is it a non-fiction, or is it like a fictionized account?
It's it's non-fiction, but rather than just explain the events of what happened and why they happened, it also has a lot of stuff about theological debate and stuff in there as well. And it's not a rip-roaring page turner exactly. You kind of have to concentrate on it, but it's worthwhile. I would recommend Aldous Huxley's The Devils of Loudon, but you need to kind of take your time with it and digest everything. But most of the really important stuff, I would say, like has made it into the film. I think the major kind of points of interest are here. So setting is 17th century France, the walled city of Loudon. There's kind of been a plague recently, and they're welcoming the new Father Grandier, right, as played by Oliver Reed. He's going to be the new priest, and he's got the nuns all excited, right?
He's a handsome guy.
He is. He's worth going to hell for, right? A man like that, someone says.
Right.
And Oliver Reed was, I mean, he's all man, right? That Oliver Reed.
Right.
And yes, specifically the nuns, they have the Mother Superior, Sister Agnes, Mother Agnes, as played by Vanessa Radgrave, who's
she plays Jeanne.
Yeah, she's like, oh yeah, sorry, Agnes was who's Agnes? Agnes is someone in another film. Maybe no, there was another. No, she's Jeanne. Who's doesn't matter. Anyway, yes, Vanessa Redgrave, you're quite right. She's Jeanne. She's Mother Jeanne. So we should mention there's actually another film which I've never seen based on the same events, called Mother Joan of the Angels. I think it's Czech,
Okay.
maybe, from a few years before this, but I didn't have a chance to see it. But there is another film out there, kind of worth mentioning. So, yes, and she seems to have a thing for this Father Grandier, right? To the point of
Psychosis.
yeah, yes, I suppose that would yeah, she's quite obsessed with him, and ends up getting quite jealous of his kind of affair with Madeline, as played by Gemma Jones, right? Who's this other woman who was thinking of joining the Order of Nuns, but instead kind of shacks up with Father Grandier. So it's a combination of. Should mention as well, the Father Grandier character is he's
a playboy.
He's a playboy. He's very much a playboy, and he's kind of a weird mixture of, like, on the one hand, he's quite he cuts a heroic figure because he's very much about, like, bringing down the barriers between the Huguenot Protestants who are being kind of persecuted and Catholics and the Jesuits, right? So, so he's on that side of things, he's very progressive. But yes, on the other hand, he is also totally taking advantage of his.
Yeah, he's a total cad.
Yeah.
He gets a young girl pregnant, and then has basically leaves her to fend for herself. And even though basically now in this time she'll never be married or have basically a decent life now, because now she's spoiled. But he's like, well, I'll see ya.
Yeah, so there's no out and out. There's no out and out heroes here, right?
Yeah. He's not he's a little bit of a gray area, I guess, right?
So the woman in pregnant, Georgina Hale, as well, is also the daughter of someone quite important, right? So that
the Baron de Laubardemont.
Could be
him?
Could be.
Yeah.
I can't remember the character name, but basically he goes out of his way as well to see. He wants he wants to see Father Grandier brought down as well, right? And at the same time, so there's an opening scene which very much establishes. I mean, I just to get ahead, I love the Devils, but one thing you can't accuse it of is subtlety, right? So from the beginning, it's very clear that there's some sort of pact between King Louis VIII, I think, and Cardinal Richelieu. This kind of state and church come.
I think it's the 13th.
Is it the third? Is it Louis the 13th? You
could
be right. I don't know my.
According to the cast list,
it's the 13th. You're right. Yes, King Louis the 13th, as played by Graham Armitage, right, who I think was a famed transvestite performer, I think. Yes. So so that combined with this Vanessa Redgrave's character, out of spite and jealousy, claiming that she is in some way being violated by Father Grandier, and this gets to the ears of the people who want to bring him down. So so in come kind of like an Inquisition type, led by Father Barret, right? Michael Gothard, with his very anachronistic, rounded off shades. And so they seize upon Loudon, and basically, it turns into a kind of a hell on earth, right, where the nuns claim to be possessed, and Father Grandier is accused of being of witchcraft, basically. And so.
But of course, it's all political, because they're just trying to get, because he's the last kind of barrier for this Cardinal Richelieu he's basically kind of like the puppet master trying to control things from behind the scenes. And the last area that he needs is this city, this walled city, but they refuse to let him take control of it, and so he's trying to find this sort of like back door to sort of bringing Father Grandier down, so that he can, because Father Grandier is like the kind of the only person standing in his way of this kind of total control.
Yeah, he's
right?
all
So he's,
for independence, isn't he?
right.
He's
Yeah.
And
so Carlo Richelieu is this sort of like evil guy trying to find a way to discredit him and bring him down, and so he has this idea of creating this story of witchcraft and possession or whatever. So and he gets all the nuns on board.
Very much in the background, you don't see Cardinal Richelieu that much. He's kind of like the historical shadowy bad guy. Yeah, we see more the people, his minions doing his bidding, right? Like the Father and the Father Mignon, played by Murray Melvin, the guy with the bowl haircut, and there's a few other characters. Yes, and being a big Ken Russell film, they're all quite mustache twirling villains.
Right. Yeah.
Like we said, subtlety is not what this film is about. But
yeah,
I mean, you have to attune to that, because that is the kind of thing that normally maybe would get my hackles up. But Ken Russell's one of the few filmmakers, I think, who can get away with doing this kind of thing. And I think, as far as I'm like I said, I'm reading The Devils of Loudon, and I've been reading some more about it and stuff. I think the only major, like, serious the only major way this swerves from what actually happened in the historical record is, I don't think that they tore the walls of the city. I don't think, somehow I don't remember that coming up in my, I think that was something, it's quite a clever device, actually, that it's a very cinematic device, right, to use for the impact. But I don't think, but surprisingly,
is Loudon still there? Is it still a city?
I don't know. I wouldn't have thought so, but it's a good question. But
yeah, on the point of the mustache twirling kind of exaggeration, I think it was kind of necessary in this particular case, because by making Father Grandier kind of a grayish, morally gray character, they had to have people who were more bad to make him historic, more heroic, right? You had to kind of root for him, even though he's kind of an asshole.
Yes.
You still need to root for him, right? So I think in that case, they needed the people he's against to be even worse, so that So I think that's why I get it.
But yeah, but surprisingly, all the stuff, the like the enemas that are administered and all that stuff. I mean, on the all that stuff is historically accurate. And something they don't show so much in the film, actually, which so kind of amazed me reading about it, was it almost became like a like a sideshow event or something. Like, apparently for months and months and months, the nuns would like almost perform being possessed by devils for crowds of people. Like, crowds of people would come to
watch
them, and it would be like a big show. And kind of, I would actually quite like to see like a really historically accurate version of the story. Just, it would be interesting to see how the truth stranger than fiction.
Well, and all you should check out the Czech version, see if it's maybe closer.
Yes, yeah. Well, I've been meaning to for years, but for some reason I haven't got around to it. So yes, if I might return with further news from Loudon if it's worth it. So how did well,
you want to talk about what happened at the end too, right? I mean, right, so that they burn him at the stake, right? So did you mention that?
spoiler, I didn't mention it, but yes, that also happens. Well, yeah, no, spoiler alert. He was burnt at the stake. Although, and again, I think
the spoiler for a real life, for a historical,
yeah,
actual
400-year-old
400-year-old historical event. Yeah.
But I think the major difference was
Here's another spoiler. Actually, they killed Hitler. They got him at the
they
end.
mention in the book that the executioner offered to strangle Father Grandier, so he doesn't actually literally get burned to death, right? And in the film, they make a big point of the executioner promises that, but the priests managed to set him on fire before he can strangle. I don't think that happened. I think maybe he actually was strangled. Yeah, I think.
So but then the body was still burned, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was still put on the pyre and everything, but I think he was killed before he didn't die from burns. Right. Yeah. So that's obviously something else that they changed a little bit for greater cinematic effect, right? Yeah. So that's basically the shape of it. How did Mr. Scott get on with his first viewing of The Devils?
I don't know. You should ask him.
The comedy.
Oh, you mean me? You're talking about me? Okay.
Yes.
You mean? Right. I have no last name here. Sorry.
Are we keeping that secret? I don't think so.
Might as well now that it's my face. Might as well. We probably should. Right?
Yeah. I think I've always called you Ron Scott.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's why I deleted it from here. So. The same thing as Nick. I think from now on.
With my pen. Here we go.
Same thing that Nick does. I think I need to keep my name out of it as much.
I need to keep on the lowdown. Okay, right. Let me rephrase that. Okay, what did you think of this, Ron?
It's too late. I already said it.
Funkelmeyer.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. I really like this movie a lot. It was. It reminded me. I didn't mention this yet, but it reminded me a lot of The Crucible.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it was sort of like the witch hunts, and then in the Crucible where they all pretend to be, or also like the witch, the Vivitch, that one, right? Where they're so into like the I mean, it's a little bit different in that case, and in those ones they were so into the group psychology of it that they actually believed themselves to be possessed. Whereas this one, I guess they were just acting the whole time, and I can't. What was their motivation again for the nuns for doing it? Just
I think basically they were threatened to do it, right? Yeah.
Right. So
toe the line, or you'll be burnt.
Right. Kind of idea. So the but it was a interesting historical event, and I think it came off of the whole witch trials of the 13th century, or whatever. I guess it was 13th century. So I think. I don't know what else to say about it, but it was. I was not sure what to expect, but it was a fascinating watch all the way through. I thought all the performances were good, and the production values were also quite good. It was really good, nice to watch and stuff. And
we should mention so the connection to Caravaggio, of course, was that that film's director, Derek Jarman, was the guy who did the sets for The Devils. Which are quite interesting as well, because something they made a point out of was Ken Russell was kind of explaining, well, whenever you do these historical films, they always have buildings that look historical, like they've been there for years and years and years. And he was saying, well, but they wouldn't look like that. They'd look new.
They'd be new, right? Exactly.
People in this city think.
Didn't we have this discussion when we were on our movie, when we were in the baseball movie, and then when we did the movie together with the Vancouver Noasahi? Remember, there was like the street which all looked like really old, like 1920s stuff. But we were like, but in the 1920s, wouldn't this be new?
New, yeah, maybe.
Or 1930s it was, yeah. So.
But it's an interesting, because the thing is as well, they've gone for, it's not as if they've gone for historical accuracy exactly. It's kind of a mixture of historical accuracy but
Yeah, I mean,
also,
yeah, like you talked about the guy that looked kind of like John Lennon a little bit, right? So you
yeah,
know, I couldn't tell. I got the impression that that was sort of on purpose, that it was,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
that
Or
it
like the
was purposeful anachronism, right?
all these white tiles and
Yeah,
things,
yeah,
and like, yeah, it's kind of a weird mixture of historical, but also what they would have thought of would have been, they're in like a futuristic city or something like that, right? So,
right, right.
but but in, yeah, you're right, it's a triumph of production design. I mean,
Hmm.
considering that I think this was the first time Derek Jarman had actually done a film as well. Like, I think he
Okay.
did some stage stuff before,
Hmm.
and someone had clued Ken Russell into what he was doing, and he offered him the job, and Derek Jarman kind of freaked out a little bit and hemmed and hawed, and then said, "Okay, I'll do it." And then, yeah, like extraordinary work, really, considering it's
Hmm.
even if it wasn't just your first film, it would be good, but your first film,
Hmm.
wow, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, and it sort of actually surprised me a couple times too, right? You think where it's going, like that whole bit with the box that the Louis XIII gives
Ah,
to
yes,
Mignon and stuff like yeah, I thought the whole point that the Louis XIII was just going to go along with it, right, and stuff like that. But of course, he himself was kind of on Father Grandier's side in terms of like realizing that these guys were up to no good and kind of pointed out their hypocrisy and stuff. He gave them this to tell the audience. He gives they're all pretending to be possessed, so the Louis XIII says, "Oh, I have a box of Jesus Christ's blood, and if you hold it up to them, that it will exorcise the spirits." And so he holds up to them, and they're like, "Oh, I'm saved." And then he opens the box, and there was nothing in it, right? So it was yeah. You think that the king is sort of going along with what he's being told, but he's actually pretty smart guy. So
I
that
think
was
I
pretty.
think that might have been one of the elements they made up. I think I don't remember
Mm,
that
I
being,
would imagine, yeah.
but
So I think
but yeah, and yeah, towards the end of the film as well, when Father Grandier is burning and all these people are standing around, you realize that you realize that any any notion that this is actually anything to do with Christianity in any way, shape, or form is just totally gone out the window.
yeah,
It's
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 all
gone,
just yeah,
it's
greed
gone,
and
yeah,
politics. Yeah.
even just beyond that, you have these, you literally have on the balconies, you have like these rich people just kind of like eating and drinking and just
Yeah.
watching the
Mm.
spectacle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally gets out of control. um yeah, so it's an interesting, how can I say, it's yeah, it's a very um um it's a really powerful,
Mm.
big kind of diatribe against this form of corruption,
Right.
and normally if you're doing something like that and you have such cartoonish villains, it kind of pushes me out more than, but like I said, in the hands of someone like Ken Russell who knows what they're doing, then
Right.
then he really whips up a storm, doesn't he?
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I think in general, it's a heightened movie, right? It's meant to
Oh
be
yeah,
that, right? So
yeah,
that's like everything is sort of cranked up to 11, and but Ken Russell has this very specific point he wants to make, and I think it's very salient in making that point. I think that keeping things subtle or more realistic maybe would result in people losing the point a bit, right? So I think he really wanted to make sure that people got his point, which was, and so he kind of, as you said, it's not subtle. So he
oh
didn't want it to be subtle, right? And that's, I think it's fine in this movie. I think in this case it works, right?
yes,
Because
yeah,
he
I
really
agree.
wanted, yeah. So I think um,
We have done Ken Russell film before, right? We did Listomania, if I remember correctly, which was another
right,
kind of totally bonkers
yeah,
kind of bash over the head.
right,
But I think this is one of the, because I'm a big Ken Russell fan in general, but some films are obviously better than others, some are more effective than others, and but I think this might be the, this might be the the pinnacle in a way. This is when what he does matches the material so perfectly, right?
Right.
That yeah, I think this is his classic.
Mm.
It'll probably
Yeah, I would say.
before, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad I was finally able to see it. I mean, of course, it's quite famous, and it was just one of those ones I had never gotten around to seeing. So
Yeah, and as well, you got to see it in somewhere close to uncut form, right? Like I don't know if you probably did notice that during the rape of Christ scene, for example, where they take the effigy of Christ down, and the quality of the image changed. It got a little
okay.
here for a few minutes or so. Yeah, the thing with the Devils is, which is kind of amazing, really. So in 1971, it was basically it's a Warner Brothers film, and Warner Brothers prepared their own cut for, I think, the US market, and then the British censors found things in it problematic as well, and they cut it for UK. But the UK version was longer than the US version. Like they cut some stuff out, but nowhere near as much as the Warner's kind of self-censored their own version. And for years, you could only see the US version because Warner wouldn't let anyone release the longer British version. And then to this day, because basically a lot of that stuff, the rape of Christ scene and some other bits were considered lost, right? And then they were eventually dug up. The film critic Mark Kermode had a lot to do with this. They eventually found the original stuff. They put it all back into the film, and then they were kind of ready to release the uncut Devils. And this was like 2012 or something like that, I think. And then Warner's refused. Like 40 years after, and to this day as well, they don't want to release the uncut version of the Devils, which is amazing, really.
Why is that?
That's what no one can quite figure out, right? I mean, that it seems just to be as simple as apparently whoever runs Warner's apparently is deeply religious and just doesn't want to put it out in its full uncut form. Apparently it has been shown at a few festivals here and there, like there are rare chances to get to see it, but it's amazing really that 50 years on they're still scared of this thing. I get it's a strong film, but I mean, I mean, come on, I mean, it's ridiculous. But so what we saw was, as far as I know to date, this is as close to uncut as is available. It's not. There's still a few bits missing, but this aired on the Shudder channel, which is like a horror channel kind of. So this aired on the Shudder channel, and some people managed to grab it off there, and that's what we're watching. But I think that's been taken down as well since. So So hold on to your Shudder versions. This runs like 113 minutes. Which is about a longer version as available. Who knows? One day if there's a change at the top of Warner's, someone dies or retires or something, we may get to see a proper uncut. I mean, I would love to go and see it. I would imagine it's a pretty amazing theatrical experience. I've never seen it on a big screen, but I can imagine it would be quite the night out at the movie.
It just when you play it on your TV, just sit really close to the TV.
Problem solved. I can't believe I've never thought of it before. And some noisy fucker with their popcorn sitting next to you.
Yeah. Just give it to your. I'll sit behind you and throw some popcorn at you from behind.
Okay, right. It's a date. Yeah, so there we go. Good. I'm glad you enjoyed the Devils. I thought you might. I thought you might because
Yeah.
but no, it's definitely a classic. I think that if you've not seen it, check it out. And there were a whole bunch of other films that came out afterwards that copied it, especially in Europe.
Right.
Lots of and we spoke about a film that came out before it, Witch Hammer. We spoke about a little bit, and there's a few other precursors, Mark of the Devil and stuff. But yeah, this is it's the classic of its kind. I think.
Right.
Yet to be bettered, 52 years later.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Take a quick break and.
well, I mean, we might as well run down the clock because we have to wait.
Well, it's just easier. Maybe just see. It looks more if you sort of cut between movies, right? So we don't have to stop talking in the middle of whatever we're saying. So.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right, so so we'll jump off, and in 4 minutes you will talk about Kevin, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
need to talk about Kevin.
We need to talk about
Kevin.
Yeah, there we go. See, got to keep that in. That's fucking.
Yeah.
That's no one's ever done
Gold.
that before. Yeah.
Gold.
Bye.
Okay, well, moving on from that movie to the next movie. All right, so this was my reaction to Caravaggio, which is I think we need to talk about Kevin. Said it there.
Good.
That was clever, right?
Yeah, but you already did it before.
I thought you were gonna cut that out.
Yeah, but I can't fake it, Ron.
Anyway, yeah. So the next movie is we need to talk about Kevin.
I'll tell you what, Ron. We need to talk about Kevin. Hey, how about that?
Okay, so
what's the connection with the Caravaggio then?
So Link was through Tilda Swinton. Right. Yes, and Tilda Swinton. Caravaggio was Tilda Swinton's first movie, and this one was not her first movie.
Yeah.
A later movie. Yeah. So, all right. So she stuck around after Caravaggio and became the mom, and we need to talk about Kevin.
That's right.
As well.
Anything else in the interim?
Among other things that she's done. Yeah, she was bald in some Marvel movies too. Anyway, so yes, so this is a 2011.
10.
Goodbye. See you. Written and directed by Lynn Ramsey. Yes, and starring Tilda Swinton and John C. Reilly and Ezra Miller, among other people. Those are the main three, I guess. And yes, so this is
also worth mentioning. It is based on a novel by Leonard Shriver, which I've read and is an excellent novel.
Oh, really? Actually, I'd like to read that. Is it same title?
Yes. Yeah. We need to talk about Tilda Swinton. And no, it's very, very good. This is a very, very, very good adaptation of the novel, I think.
Right. Okay. Any big differences?
I was wondering about this actually. No, I mean, it's been a little while since I read it. But no, I don't think any. I mean, it's one of those few really good films which I think tonally gets the book, but also does its own thing. It's not too beholden to the book either. I mean, I saw the film before I read the book, and I would say I mean, it doesn't really matter. You read the book, you watch the film, in any order. They're both fantastic works of art.
Right. Oh, so we already know what you think of it. So good.
Yeah. Well, I went to see this when it came out in theaters.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a big
being a Lynn Ramsey fan, I guess, right?
Oh, this was the first Lynn Ramsey film fan I saw, but and I've since become a Lynn Ramsey fan. Yeah, but where was I going with that? But yeah, this is the film that made me a fan. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay. Yeah, so anyway, this is the basic outline of this movie. It's a family are trying to have kids, and a couple are trying to have kids, and so she finally gets pregnant, and but has a sort of disconnect with her child, and the child's born, and it turns out that the child's basically psychotic, right? So yeah, and it's kind of drip fed you throughout the movie, that obviously, and it kind of, there's jumps back and forth in the timeline. There's a time kind of time jumping back and forth. It's kind of not linear as well, and so
we should flag up, as I was sorry to interrupt you there. We are going deep into
spoilers. Yeah, deep spoilers in this one.
We can't really go around.
Yeah, I don't think you can't talk about it. Yeah, so she so you get the impression that something terrible has happened, and that the kind of more like the future, or the maybe present day, it's showing that she's like basically a pariah of her community. People like come up on the street and just like slap her, and everyone hates her. She can't get a job. She gets this really shitty job, and they, with the guy or the lady who hires her says, "Well, I don't care what you've done," and stuff. So obviously there's something terrible has happened, and she's also living alone. So whereas in the past she's had this whole family, so you get the impression that something terrible has happened, and you get little drips and drabs and flashes, and something to do with lots of blood, and then at one point you see her visit her son Kevin in prison, and it's quite awkward, and they don't speak to each other, and so you get the impression that Kevin has done something, but you're not sure exactly what. And then yeah, and so then it kind of flash through flashbacks, and it was not really, if it's a flashback, it's just sort of like a non-linear story, I guess.
That's the thing. I don't think you can say it's either a flashback or a flash, because it plays out in a series. So there's no center of time. I don't think it's
right. Yeah, it's just here and there. They're going back and forth, and and two timelines running continuously, right? And the so she so it shows her kind of finally getting pregnant, and they're having difficulty getting pregnant, so she finally gets pregnant, but has kind of a difficult pregnancy, and you can see she's got this kind of postpartum depression, and the baby's kind of weird, where he just cries all the time, and she's having like a lot of trouble becoming a mother, and connected with the kid, and her husband doesn't really get it, because he's out work all day and just comes home for a little bit, and doesn't really get why she's not kind of connecting with the kid.
There's a great scene where because apparently I was when I was a child, I basically cried for the first
really
years of my life.
Well, that makes sense. Now we need to talk about Clive.
I was a nightmare kid. The stories I've heard, I'm just pleased my mother didn't just throw me out the window.
In terms of behavior, or just because you were crying as a baby?
Crying all the time, like non-stop. So
but you're probably colic.
No, I don't think that was it, because my parents would have. I did have a serious medical condition when I was very, very young. That might have something to do with it. But anyway, but there's a great, though, the reason that there's a one of my favorite scenes in the film is when we see her pushing her pram around, and she's like passing people on the street, and there's people giving her dirty looks, and she's just like, and then she goes, so she just for a little bit of respite, she goes and stands next to some roadworks with some guy with a jackhammer, just like, and just she's just basking in any sound that isn't her crying child.
Yeah.
That always gets a big laugh out of me. That I think that's a fantastic scene.
Yeah. But I mean,
of the film, one of the inventions.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who's had two kids, I mean, I can tell you that when your kids cry all the time, it's really, really stressful. Like it's really hard, because you're like, emotionally it's hard. And it's just like it's like this really unpleasant sound all the time, and something that you feel responsible for, and something that other people hold you responsible for. Like, why aren't you doing something more about this?
Right.
But it's not something obvious. It's not something you can always do something about. And yeah, it's yeah, I can see. I totally could empathize with her as a character in terms of like not being able to deal with it as well. So, but anyway, and so then you see him getting older, and he's kind of a weird kid, and he's very kind of emotionally distant, and gives these real kind of strange kid and really
Sour face, isn't he?
sour face. Yeah,
As the little boy, I think he's played by Jasper Newell. I think who's good. He's good.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
when he gets older, it's the Flash, right? It's Ezra Miller.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Who himself is, which it has adds another level to this because he himself is sort of psychotic. So,
Trouble now. Yeah.
or not. Sorry, it's not he. They themselves are also psychotic. Ezra Miller is a they now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew he'd been acting out, and he's had to promise to seek like therapy and stuff, hasn't he? But I didn't know that it was non-binary as well.
Yeah. So yeah, Ezra is a they, but also has been in really lots of trouble, and I think I was reading up on Ezra's kind of difficulties, and there was like one part where they think that they're like Jesus and stuff like that. So like I think Ezra actually has like
He's
actual mental issues.
He's attacked other people, isn't he? He's like
Yeah,
he
attack.
doesn't play well with others. Yeah.
So yeah, it's yeah. I just saw The Flash this week too, so it was interesting watching The Flash and Kevin kind of
How
almost
was it?
simultaneously. I really enjoyed it actually. It was really good. Yeah, it was
How was
quite
he?
a good movie.
How was he? Because
Hey,
sorry. How were they? Because he hasn't. I'm not used to calling him.
just say Ezra. How
They
about that? That way we won't get to.
Ezra hasn't played the Flash before, right? This is
Yes, Ezra played the Flash in the Justice League.
but this is the first vehicle.
First standalone, yeah, stand. Yeah.
They weren't in the TV series. That was a different.
No, that was Grant Gustin.
But no, what I've heard is people say is they are like so good. They are so amazing as the Flash or whatever. And then I've heard other people say, I don't know if they are that good as the Flash, or someone else could have played the Flash. So what's your take on him? Yeah. For fuck's sake, Ezra Miller as the Flash. What do you?
I really like Ezra as the Flash. At least when you first see Ezra in the Justice League, they play the Flash quite well, right? And I like the take on it. It's sort of akin to, I mean, if we're going into superhero territory, it's sort of akin to Tom Holland's Super Spider-Man, which was kind of a younger, kind of fresher take on it, and more of like a comedic kind of like has a lot of like kind of a lot of comedy behind it. So which of course makes it more kind of relatable and likable. I mean, of course, I'm not saying that nobody else could have done it, but that Ezra's take on it on the Flash is I enjoy it. So it depends on how much you can separate reality from fiction. I guess sometimes from the artist. But I enjoyed the Flash the movie, so it was quite good. I thought.
I'm wondering if Ezra's problems stem from as they used to say about Jordan Catalano, that he's just too good looking. He's just too gorgeous.
You think Ezra Miller's too good looking?
I think in this film, yeah, in We Need to Talk About Kevin, he's got that almost like demonically handsome look, right? Like, yeah, I think having that.
I think that probably lends itself to the character of Kevin, which is that
absolutely it's someone who hasn't, in a way, hasn't had to learn certain social skills because they get away with Do you know what I mean? That there's a certain type of good looks, especially and actually living in Japan as well. It's a type of young handsomeness which is, I think, particularly coveted here, right? Which is a pretty boy more than like manly, if you see what I mean, more of a pretty boy look, and almost whereas the narcissism is actually part of it. Like that's not like someone is so good looking, they know they're so good looking, and there's a sneering narcissism that comes through. I think for people who like that look, that narcissism actually adds to it. The fact that the person knows they're that good looking amplifies it even more. I don't know if I'm articulating this very well, but that sort of it used to comes from like the visual K world, like a gacked and that kind of pretty boy J-pop idol look. Not the the Johnnies, the Arashi and Smart. That's a different thing, right? But there's this type of he looks like that type of narcissistic Japanese idol kind of look, where the knowing that you're good is part. It just makes it's an interesting. I don't really quite know how to explain it, but it's one of those things where I can imagine if I was a heterosexual woman, I think I would be attracted to that bad boy image, and the more bad, the more narcissistic, the more attractive it would be.
So to summarize, basically what you're saying is that you want to fuck Ezra Miller.
No. Ezra Miller would fuck me.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think Ezra Miller is more handsome than other Hollywood actors. I don't think.
I don't know what they look like now. Do they look the same as like, or
I don't,
because they were very young. Oh, he in then he was right. Look, were very young. I mean, sometimes people don't keep the looks, right? Do they look more or less the same, or?
Yeah, I mean, in the Flash, it looks
Okay.
it just looks 12 years older, I guess, or 13, give or taking. But yeah, I don't know. I think it works for the character that Kevin is a good-looking kid, because if Kevin was an ugly kid, it's easier to hate him, I guess, right? But I don't really think his looks are a part of the character to be, because it's not like he uses his looks for anything. It's not like it's a. But
I don't know. I think it's in there. I think it's in there. Like, for instance, the way he orders his little sister about, like, get me a soda and that.
Yeah.
I think it is kind of in there on a subconscious level. I disagree with you there. I think it is, but I think the character does have to be really good looking.
Well, yeah, I don't know if they have to be really good looking. I mean, I think they have to be not ugly, right? But I don't know, because when Kevin is a child, it wouldn't really matter if he's a handsome kid or not. Like that sort of sneeringness that you were talking about wouldn't really come through when you're a child, because you would have no concept of being handsome versus other people, right? So, and it wouldn't really come into it. So I think the point is that he was like mentally unstable. I think that's right from being born. That's why the baby was crying and nonstop, and is that it's a mental instability. But for some reason, only the mother can see it, right? Even the father can't see it, right? The father, and because it's almost like when the dad comes home, he sort of becomes, he has like a Jekyll Hyde personality, right? Becomes this like kind of model son, and really loves to hang out with his dad, and his dad can't figure out why mom doesn't get along with his kid, right?
John C. Reilly actually does a very good job with a slightly underwritten role, and it's not, and deliberately, I'm not from in the book as well, actually, because the book is from Tilda Swinton's character's point of view, right? And there's a lot more about. So I'm wondering if there's some stuff that isn't made. I mean, it's not necessarily, but it isn't made obvious in the film. Like, did you get that she was kind of a globe-trotting kind of writer of kind of Lonely Planet type rough guy?
Well, you got, again, that was sort of drip fed to you too. I mean, it's one of the very first images is her in that kind of tomato festival, right?
Yes.
Right, where she's sort of being, carried, like kind of like crowd surfing in this, this everyone pelting each other with tomatoes. That's in Spain,
You say tomato, I say tomato. Let's call the whole
well,
thing.
where is that? Spain?
I think it's Spain. Yeah, I've done a
Yeah.
recreation of it for a TV commercial, but
Oh, did you? Yeah. So, and so you see her doing that, and you're like, well, what is that? Or what does that have to do with anything? And then you're gradually getting that. And she worked at a travel agency, a really kind of higher end travel agency, and you get the impression that she was this sort of like world traveler and was always out doing stuff.
a celebrity travel writer, right?
Right.
And specifically interested in going to exotic places, different places. So there's a lot of stuff that, again, it's interesting what they keep a little bit of it in the film. There's like one bit where she talks about she goes to play golf with Kevin, and she has a little aside about fat people, and she just says they just eat too much food. That's it. They eat the wrong type of food, they eat too much of it. That's it. It's not complicated or whatever. And there's a lot more in the book of her. So her character, her family name is Kachadorian, right? So I think it's Armenian. I think she comes from like an Armenian background, and yeah, she really loathes modern American culture in the book. I mean, I think there's a lot of Lionel Shriver in the Kachadorian character. Right. Maybe Lionel Shriver even has some Armenian background. Anyway, and yeah, so there's a lot more of that in there as well, and there's a back and forth between her and Kevin in the book about like how snobby she is about modern.
Yeah, I got that. Like, it wasn't really kind of, you weren't really hit over the head with it, but you get the impression that she was, it was very subtle that she was a little bit like, thought herself a little bit better than other people, and had all these experiences, and kind of loved to do, like, was kind of cultured and snobbish, and she had been
the casting
well traveled
is spot on, I think.
I thought she did a great job. She
carries all that, like she brings all that slight kind of haughtiness,
sort of bias against kind of like and then to see how different she is in the future timeline, because she's sort of like really kind of she's like had a huge slice of humble pie, and like people will come up to her and slap her on the street, and she like will just say sorry and walk away, right? Because like it's so it's
she doesn't because this is the other thing. Again, this is one of the important parts of it, right, which I think is fleshed out a little bit more in the book, but there's just enough of it in the film. Is the thing is she's almost martyring herself, right, because she doesn't know whether she's actually to blame or not, right? Because from the beginning, it's like, because she's wondering, have I in some way like transmitted my basic,
but to be fair, to be fair, as someone who's watching this for the first time, you actually don't know if she did have some sort of part until the end, right? You don't, because you know that Kevin is in jail, but you don't know actually what's happened yet until it gets to the end.
Right.
So you don't actually know what she's done. You feel like somehow she is complicit, but you don't know what it is, right?
So, and that's why it's a film that also benefits repeat viewings as well, right?
Right.
From the it's almost as if, did I transmit my lack of desire to have a child to him in the so is it actually did he detect like from the beginning that I didn't want him, so is it my fault, or is it actually, is he a psychopath? And there's and that part of the whole nature nurture debate, and so there's a lot of stuff in the book and the film, and I can imagine some people might take against this film because these are very contentious issues, and especially nature versus nature, for example. But I think it's worth keeping in mind that both the book and the film are they're interested in these issues, but they're not telling you
taking
what
a point of view.
No,
yeah, they're not taking yeah.
No.
But I would say there was. I mean, I did get a little bit from the idea of the sister, because the sister is a very well-rounded, kind of well brought up little girl, and she's very happy, and they made a very clear point of showing the difference between Kevin and her and the sister, right? So, and to show that obviously it's not her, it's not the mother that created this, it's that Kevin himself has the problem, right? So that's what I got from it, right? By the introduction of, and the clear statement that the sister was not fucked up at all, right? So that's what I got from that.
Maybe, or yeah, it's in the shadow of, like, she's given her more love, or I mean, because there's a lot we don't see, right? Because we only see. But I forgot to finish my point. John C. Reilly does a really good job with a role which is slightly underwritten in both film and the book. Like you said, he's only there some of the time, and it's just him kind of, way to go, son. There's a lot of tapping of shoulders, and he does well with it, I think. Like I can imagine a lesser actor not, but there's
John C. Reilly is so likable all the time that he's just sort of like, you can kind of get that he's this kind of clueless dad who kind of comes home and he's like, why? What's going on? He's Mr. Cellophane, right? So he's. Yeah,
it's good as well. All the little bits where someone saying, and then Tilda Swinton's like, can hear them getting all along, and she's just and stuff like all that stuff is fantastic. I think
and I mean, it's really brilliant. But it's really interesting to see her. Of course, like she's so isolated in her experience, right? That I mean, the one person who should share her experience is the dad. Is the husband, but he doesn't see this at all. He has no experience. He has no. He thinks that she's just kind of crazy about this, right? And the fact that she, but we're seeing this as the audience, where this kid is pretty kind of weird, right? Yeah. There's obviously something wrong with this kid, but of course, why he's weird is up for debate, I guess, whatever. But definitely the fact is that nobody else sees it, right? So she feels like. There's also this element of where maybe she thinks she's crazy because she's the only one seeing this, right? So anyway, I thought it was really brilliant that done that way. So anyway, so through dribs and drabs, moving on. Eventually, younger Kevin is given a bow and arrow as a present, and starts with like the suction cup bow and arrow, and then graduates to real archery. Right, and which is, I guess you call it, Chekhov's bow and arrow, right? And so then it continues, but so anyway, it continues on. That eventually, you see that he gets more proficient with the bow and arrow, and he's doing these things. He does and then he gets things where he puts out his sister's eye with the bow and arrow.
And there's like a hamster meets a sticky end, right?
Hamster, yeah. So he starts with the real, like the real red flags of psychotics, which is killing kids or killing animals and stuff, and maiming other people as well with no. And there's a great scene where he's after the daughter has lost her eye, and they're having dinner, and he starts to peel this fruit that's like the lychee fruit, right? And then he starts to like just bite into it, like really juice, and letting the juice for it, like basically very much like an eyeball, right? And just almost like just taunting his mother by showing that I did this on purpose. But nobody else does, and I'm going to do this just to it's really, really like tense. Really,
he's always playing everyone. There's another scene I really like as well, where when he's sick one day, and for the first time he seems to like favor his mother
Yeah.
over his father, and she's like, wow, like
Oh,
unbelievable. And then as soon as he's better, it's just like, nope. It's like
yeah.
he's just totally played her, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah.
He's obviously like he's obviously a really really smart kid. Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's obviously I guess, I mean, without going too much into the psychology of it, I mean, I guess he considered a sociopath because he has no feeling or emotion as to the things that he does, but he's also knows exactly how to change
Yeah.
his public persona based on who he's talking to, right? And so he only lets his mother see it, which is the only thing I would have, as I mentioned earlier before we were on camera, the only thing that I kind of had struggled with a little bit with this whole story, which is that it's really, no matter how sociopathic you are, it's really hard to believe that no one else saw anything with this kid, right? So even when he was at school, it's hard to believe that maybe his teacher never saw anything, like, you know, even just a little bit, you know, come out in his artwork, even, you know, kind of stuff, you know. There would have been some sort of red flag in terms of how he interacts with other kids at school.
I don't know though, but you know as well as I do, Ron, every time something like this does happen, guaranteed when they're doing the Vox Pops interviewing people, every single person, he seems like such a nice guy.
Nice guy, yeah. Well, that's usually the neighbors and stuff, but usually teachers can see something because the teacher would have seen Kevin as much as the mom did, right? Because they, because they're around it as much as the parents are once they start school age, you know. So
I'm wondering if one, and I can't remember if this was I don't remember it being in the book, but if you think about it, a quick fix for that, if they'd wanted to do that, would have been that you'd contrive it so the children are homeschooled, right? That would
right.
be one
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
you could
You know,
do.
you know,
I don't know if that is the case or not, because that would make sense, right? That would make.
But like even if it wasn't the teacher, then another kid at school. I mean, there was no interactions with other, you know, friends or like no one else. He had never been, you know,
again, if you added the homeschool element,
homeschool, that would cover it. But the fact that they didn't do that was just a little bit of a kind of a blind spot. I think that the movie and the story in general could have explored that. There must have been something more to it, you know. So
maybe we didn't pick up on it. I mean, maybe he was homeschooled. I mean, I don't know. There's parts where she's like trying to teach him things,
right?
So
right.
And I honestly can't remember now if he was homeschooled in the novel or not. But that would clear up a lot of the stuff.
But of course, I feel like that mom wouldn't want to homeschool him. Eventually, she would just say, "Send him to school," right? She would want him out of the house, right? So that was the other thing. Anyway, so jumping ahead, we're running out of time. So jumping ahead, it turns out that he ends up basically being like a Columbine. Instead of being a school shooter, he's a school archist. What did we say? Archer. School archer. So he basically buys these bike locks and then goes into the gym and locks up the gym so that people can't escape. And then just instead of shooting people, he starts using a bow and arrow and does like basically a school massacre in the gym, killing people with bow and arrow, which was kind of an odd choice. I'm not sure why they decided to use bow and arrow specifically, because I feel like it takes a long time to load a bow and arrow, even if you're proficient with it, easy enough for someone to take them down, you know. So it was.
No, I think you could, if you were fast. I think you could probably kill quite a few people. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. It just seemed like such a random. I don't know if there was any more significance to the bow and arrow. I mean, of course they introduced it at the beginning, but why they decided to go with bow and arrow versus another weapon?
I suppose it makes it more feasible. I mean, it's not as if, well, unless you set it in a very, and again, it wouldn't make sense for the mother and the character. It's more difficult to have him practicing shooting guns at home.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it could have been like, I don't know, swords or something, you know, or like, you know, I don't know, something else that, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he's in like kendo or something, right? I don't know.
I like that little wrinkle. I like that it's slightly different. That it's the bow and arrow thing, because it also takes it out of the not that that's not a debate worth having, but it's a different thing. It takes it out of the whole gun debate thing, right? It's
right. I guess. Yeah. I
nothing to
guess.
do with that. It's just to do with because that's I think that would muddy the waters even more, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So, but it essentially has the same effect and same
Yeah.
result. Right?
Basically, it's a school shooting.
Yeah.
It is a yeah.
And and so it kind of finishes with her. She finally, it's been like 2 years after the effect, and you see her visiting him, regularly throughout the movie in prison, and they obviously has this very awkward relationship, continuing to have an awkward relationship, and so finally at the very last scene, she kind of tries to have a heart to heart with him and say, now I've waited this long, why did you do it? And or sorry, I forgot to mention also, she goes home and realizes that he's also
Killed.
used it on the husband and the sister as well. So that's
Not
why she's
John
alone now.
C. Reilly. John C. Reilly.
So they've also been killed, right? So he's killed the whole family and then gone to the school and killed a bunch of the kids at school. Including one scene I forgot to mention, one of my favorite scenes I forgot to mention, which is when she's in the supermarket hiding from the other lady, right? There's a earlier scene where she goes to the supermarket and sees this person and immediately gets like terrified and starts hiding, so that the person doesn't see her, and she leaves her cart there and is hiding from this person and tries to get out of the supermarket as quickly as she can, and realizes that the woman has seen her and has smashed all her eggs. She goes, I'll just take the eggs the way they are, right? Right? She just wants to get out of this.
Again, to her martyr thing, she insists on eating those eggs with the shells.
Eating those eggs, yes. With the
maybe I deserve this,
yeah, right. Anyway, it turns out that, of course, her daughter, that woman's daughter, was in the gym, of course, right?
Yeah,
so that's you find out later.
So interesting you mentioned that. It just reiterates another thing, and I think it is worth mentioning because this was the first time for me to notice, because I'm going in knowing exactly what's going to happen. I remember seeing this film for the first time not knowing anything, and I loved it. And it's interesting watching it now, and you know what's coming. I think I might like it even more because I really appreciate, because you know why she's doing everything she's doing, and then. And it's a.
And did you liked it better this time?
I think so. I might. I love this film. I think it's a fantastic.
Yeah.
Film.
Well, this film has been on my to watch list for years. I just hadn't gotten around to watching it. So this is my first time. So it was one of those movies that I finally decided I'm just going to use this podcast as a way to finally get through these movies I've been meaning to watch. So and it working. So I'm glad I watched it. It was really, really excellent movie. And so anyway, so going back to what I was saying is at the very end, she kind of sits down with him and says, okay, why did you do it? And he's like, I don't know. No reason.
Well,
right.
Basically, he says like, I think I used to know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anymore. Right?
Yeah.
And,
which is
kind of he's moved on, and he's suddenly sort of become really vulnerable. And he's entering he's going to big prison, right? That's the thing. And he realizes, fuck.
He's turning of age, yeah.
Well, more than that is obviously when he goes into big prison with the grown-ups, they're gonna know who he is. And he's basically gonna get his ass handed.
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing I was a little unclear about, because she did say, she goes, you did this because it was his birthday, right? That was the point, that he did it on his birthday. But then she said that you specifically did it the day before you turned 16. Yeah. And so I wasn't a little, because obviously it was planned that he would do it before he turned 16 so that he wouldn't be
tried as a juvenile. Yeah.
Tried as a juvenile, but I wasn't really clear about that. So that he was still going to be considered. Now that he turned 18, he's just goes into the big deal, like
I think that's how it works. He's basically entering a general population, right? And that's not gonna go well.
Yeah, I guess. Right.
Also, you could see on his face, right? He's got these scars or something. So something's already
out. Yeah, it's all like really, really subtle, right? So he's going through stuff, right? And yeah, and so then, but basically, it's just really chilling ending because he just doesn't care. He has no thoughts one way or the other, or feelings one way or the other about what he's done, and yeah, so it's it's
It's
really like
almost as if something's dawning on him, right? Something's dawning on him, but you don't know if it's sympathy or if it's just self-preservation or you know.
right.
Score by Johnny Greenwood,
Mm.
and really good use of oldies on the soundtrack as well.
Oh,
Beach Boys, Lonnie Donegan, stuff like that.
right, yeah.
Yeah. So no, it's one of, I think it's one of the classics of the 21st century so far.
I would say so. Yeah. I'm glad I finally got around to watching it because it was really just a like a riveting, but yeah, movie. I thought it was quite good for everybody.
I put it on and I was thinking, and I just got absorbed. So
Right,
we shall be reacting to this next time, right?
Right.
So until then,